Week 1 of your mystery quilt and some of your following weeks in your mystery quilt, I don't want to tell you when because then it wouldn't be a mystery. You need to stitch your units, we're calling them, on lightweight cutaway stabilizer. So cut a piece big enough for your hoop, and then before you stitch them, we need to pre-shrink it. So with a very hot, dry iron, just slowly press the cutaway stabilizer so that it will do the shrinking. Any shrinking it's going to do, we want it to happen before we stitch out our units. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just giving it a press with a hot, dry iron. And then once it's pre-shrunk, it's ready to put in my hoop and stitch my units. The things you'll need to get started for week 1 of our mystery quilt in the beginning are, of course, your instructions, which I've already printed up, and we will be stitching file names W1S2 and W1S3, which stands for week 1 section 2, week 1 section 3. So here's what you'll need. First, we will use some lightweight cutaway stabilizer, and what you will need to do is press this with a hot iron to pre-shrink it so it doesn't shrink later after your blocks are done. And I've already placed that in my hoop. It's hard to see, but there it is. You will need a square of fabric 1 cut in half diagonally, fabric 2 the same thing, and 3 and 4, and you will need some strips of fabric 4. The thread you will need will be a neutral thread. I've chosen green to match my fabric, and an embroidery bobbin thread. Another handy item to have is a glue pen. So let's get started. Getting ready to stitch step 1, and I forgot to mention we're going to need some wash away thread in your needle, so I went ahead and threaded my machine with that. And here's a great tip for you. My wash away or my cutaway stabilizer is very wide, so there's extra hanging over the edge that I don't want to waste. So I've got my hoop here, I've got my design called up. We're going to work with week 1 section 2, and I'm going to go ahead and move it as far as I can to the right. So my design will stitch as far as I can over to this side of the hoop so that I can rehoop and do another section here. So depending on the size of the blocks that you're doing, you might be able to do that as well. So that's something to watch for. So step 1 is just to sew the placement stitch onto the cutaway stabilizer with the wash away thread. It's a little hard to see, but hopefully, I don't know if you can tell, but we have our placement stitches stitched out in water-soluble thread on the cutaway stabilizer. So step 2 is to take that triangle of fabric 3 and place it in this top corner. And it says to leave a scant 1/4 inch extend over the seam allowance, which would be this line here. So that is what I will do. I will leave about a scant 1/4 inch. I can feel the stitching underneath my fabric, and I'll let the machine stitch the tack down with the water-soluble thread. For step 3, it's the same thing in the lower section. We let the edge extend about a scant 1/4 inch, and we stitch the tack down there as well. Step 4, we're going to place fabric 4, the strip of fabric 4 right side to fabric 3, and when you place it, you want to make sure when you flip it over, like if I were to place it here, stitch my seam and flip it over, I would actually be short in the corner. So you want to make sure when you place it that you have plenty of room when you flip it over, that it covers this whole section. I've gone ahead and changed out to my neutral thread in my needle, so I'm going to go ahead and place this and stitch the seam. So my seam is stitched, and now I'm going to take a glue pen and just run a little bit around that inside area where fabric 4 will be flipped over, and then I'll flip it right side up, finger press that seam, and smooth it out and allow that glue pen to hold my fabric down. So it sort of acts like an iron for me. I'm going to keep the neutral thread in the needle, put my hoop back on, and let it tack down this section 4 for me. There's my tack down, so I'm going to trim this because my next step is down here and that fabric's in the way. I'm going to leave a 1/2 inch on the outside edge, about, roughly, and a scant 1/4 inch on the inside edge. And then I don't have to worry about this right now, I'll get that later, but now I'm ready to go on to step 6. Step 6 is basically a repeat of the block above, and we'll place again our strip number 4 on right sides to fabric 3 and stitch the seam. So the next step again is step 7, where we flip this fabric right side up, finger press the seam. I've already put my glue pen down, so that's what I'll do. Finger press the seam and let that glue pen just kind of smooth it out nice and flat. It's going to hold it down for me. And then I'll place the hoop back on and I will stitch my tack down. So we're ready for step 8 and step 9. I've gone ahead and trimmed up all my excess fabric from fabric 4. Step 8 is to place a triangle of fabric 2 right side to fabric 4, and step 9 is the same thing. So I'm going to go ahead and place both of my triangles, and while I have access to it, because I know this is next, so save me a little time to go ahead and put my glue pen down now. And then I can put the hoop back on and stitch my seam. So there are my 2 seams stitched. So now I need to go ahead and remove my thread and replace it with my water-soluble thread for the last step, which is step 10. And we'll go ahead and finger press these seams down. Let the glue pen hold it for me. Get a nice sharp crease right at the seam. And I'll switch out my water-soluble thread and stitch my last step. So after step 10 is stitched, it says in the directions to not unhoop it until we mark some cutting instructions on our block. So on the next page, it shows a picture of your hoop, and then it shows a 1/4 inch in specific locations. So I go ahead and mark that on my block. I use like a friction pen or some type of a pen that'll go away. I do it within the seam allowance, so I have a 1/4 inch marked here and here, here and here, and then I can go ahead and rehoop this for my next section using all my excess, because I may turn it or something, and so when I go to trim this, I'll have an easy reference as to where to trim the block. So I'm ready to switch out the position of my cutaway. Remember I said I had excess. So I unhoop it, just going to turn it around and go ahead and rehoop this for my next block. So we'll come back and stitch our next one. So I'm stitching step 1 of week 1 section 3 with my wash away thread in the needle, and this will be for my so I know where to place my fabric. Ready for step 2, and that's to place a triangle of fabric 4 in the lower left section. I'm going to allow this raw edge to extend about 1/4 inch past that basting line. And the step after that, 3, is the same thing on this side, so I'll go ahead and place them, leaving water-soluble thread in the needle, and I will stitch the tack down for these 2. This is step 3, stitching the tack down for the fabric in the corner. Step 4 is to place a triangle of fabric 1 in the lower left section, right sides together, so I will do that. And then it will stitch the seam. And what follows is doing the same thing in this corner, and then we flip it up. And while I have the hoop in an accessible area, I go ahead and put my glue down, because I know that's coming. And I'll attach my hoop and I'll stitch my seam. So I'm ready for step 5. I'm going to flip my fabric right side up. My glue's already there. Hold it down. And step 5 is a tack down stitch. So I'll go ahead and stitch that. Step 6 is a repeat of the other side, so I'll stitch my seam. Flip the fabric right side up, finger press the seam. And step 7 is a tack down. So I've stitched my tack down, and I notice I have quite a large seam allowance here, which might happen to you as well. So in that case, you should go ahead and trim that to a scant 1/4 inch. It'll look nicer on your finished product if your seam isn't too large. And now we're ready for step 8, and that's to take your triangle of fabric 3, which will go right here. And you'll place it right side to this fabric. It will sew a seam, and we'll do the same thing on the other side. Step 8 is first, which will be the left side, stitching the seam. And I'm going to go ahead and bring my hoop forward. Place my glue pen. I'll go ahead and do both sides since I know that one's coming. And then the next step is to flip this up, finger press the seam, and it'll stitch the tack down. So the tack down is step 9. And step 10 is to go ahead and seam the other side. So I'm ready to go. So I'll go ahead and stitch it. I need to flip this up, finger press it, stick it down to my glue pen area, and step 11 will be to sew the tack down. On to step 12, and that's where we'll take a strip of fabric 4, place it right side to fabric 3. It's going to sew the seam, and since I have my hoop in a nice position, I'm going to go ahead and put my glue there, doing the same thing on this side as well, because that one is next. And we'll go ahead and stitch step 12, which will be the seam. My seam is stitched, so it's time to finger press my fabric. Get a nice sharp edge. Use that glue to hold it down. In step 13, it will tack it. Ready for step 14, which is to do the same thing on this side. So I'll take my strip of fabric 4, place it right side to fabric 3 with my raw edges even, and let the machine stitch the seam. My seam is stitched, so I will flip it right side up, finger press the seam, smooth it out, and let our glue do its job holding it down, and the machine will tack down this side the same as it did that side. Step 16 is to place a square of fabric 2 right side to fabric 4 with your raw edges even. It's going to stitch the seam, and again, while my hoop is disconnected, I'm going to go ahead and place my glue there, and then it will follow with the other side, so I'll get that fabric ready to go as well. And I'll place the hoop back on the machine and let it stitch the seam. This is step 17, and I'm already ready to go. So now I'm ready to flip these up and finger press them and let the glue do its job again, and we're ready for the last step. Step 18, the final step, is to change to your wash-away thread in the needle only, and the machine will stitch a final tack down around the entire set of units. So before we unhoop this, we need to go to the next page on your directions, which shows you with where the red square is. It says 1/4 inch, and I marked it on my seam allowance on the block, so I know to trim this side 1/4 inch and this side 1/4 inch. The rest of the sides get 1/2 inch. So now we're ready to go ahead and trim up these units. So I'm ready to trim up my units. So I'm going to remove them from my hoop. And the first thing I'll do is I actually have my section 2 and section 3 in one area. So I'm going to just cut them apart, roughly cut them apart. I'll start with section 2. And I've marked my 1/4 inch. So I like to trim all the outside edges first, just to save a little time. So I have my 1/4 inch on this side. So we'll trim that off, turn it around. There's no 1/4 inch marked here, so this is going to get 1/2 inch. I'll do this side. This side is both marked 1/4 inch, so I'll get them both at the same time. I'm trimming 1/4 inch past that outside basting line. The last outside edge is here. No 1/4 inch is marked, so this gets 1/2 inch. If your fabric doesn't quite extend that 1/2 inch, don't worry about it. You've got your cutaway under there to grab. This will help you grab it when you place it on to your next week's block. So now I've trimmed around my whole outside edge. Now we'll do the center. This side gets 1/4 inch, so we'll go ahead and trim that. So this one's done. One more side on this one. This side gets a 1/2 inch. So these are my 2 units. This is week 1, section 2. And I have my 1/4 inch on this side and my 1/2 inch on these sides, just like the directions show. So next we'll go ahead and trim up. This is week 1, section 3. Again, I do all the outside edges first. This just saves time. They're lined up in your hoop, so you can go ahead and do that. This edge does not have my 1/4 inch mark, so that means I'll give it a 1/2 inch trim. I have a 1/4 inch mark here. This side gets a 1/2 inch. And this side gets a 1/2 inch. Now cut the 2 apart. There's a 1/4 inch on this side. So we'll go ahead and trim that to your 1/4 inch. Our last edge, this will get a 1/2 inch. So these are my week 1 section 3s ready to go.